we finally left the season of BRO. We are, resting for V. We're waiting for the VMP product. But while you're at it, why not go back into the deepest, most expensive deck of D? The Wallet. Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Mr. here. Today, I am back to talk about the ultimate Dragonic Overlord deck profile, featuring the most amount of yen you can have in a camera frame. But of course, this is not my list. I cannot afford such things. I'm going back to school. Today, we have Fader 4th.
Jeez, I wonder how much Brainwash Swirler is.
So, Brainwash Swirler has been dethroned by Dragonic Overlord as the most expensive deck in the planet. So, today we're going to talk about Dragonic Overlord with all of its new support, including the nefarious Alder Hatchet. Now, Alder Hatchet is a very interesting card. Some people say, oh, it's a lot like, the angel that uses to slide PBD into the soul. Frankly, I don't really agree, but Alder Hatchet gives you a lot of flexibility, both for non-Dragonic Overlord DN right deck players and for Dragonic Overlord regular players. So if you're a regular Dragonic Overlord player, this basically helps you cheat out the entire prison matchup, because it ensures that you always get to slide a Dragonic Overlord into the soul so DN can stay active even after Seraph Pure Light activates its effect. But if not, then what happens is that you can also play into a little turbo DOTE style. So basically, it's like playing your good old Phantom Blaster Overlord, and then you slide your Dragonic Overlord into the soul, basically giving you a full powered DN on turn 3, which is very devastating. But the downside is you only have 4 copies of Alder Hatchet, and that's assuming you could afford 4 copies of Alder Hatchet. By now you probably would have robbed the bank or two. But even if you could afford 4, that's only 4 targets in the whole deck that you can actually use to trigger this effect to fully empower Dragonic Overlord DN. Not to mention, you can't actually search him out because he's not a grade 1, so not even Bars can save him. So with that out of the way, just to clarify, this is a Dragonic Overlord DN deck profile in the right deck. So we just want to make sure that you are fully aware, and this deck is very expensive and also very unsafe. So if you are unable to afford this deck, there is a link in the description below for our other Dragonic Overlord DN deck profile that is still viable today and still usable if you are unable to afford any of the promos we are going to show you today. For our right deck, we play one of the soup starter, one of the soup grade 1s, the embodiment of it's not one Dragonite, and then Dragonic.
My man, it's been the card's been out for 12 years. How can you get the name wrong?
I'm sorry, I got it wrong.
So our starter has to be Silk Blaze Dragon Ahimsa, because our grade 1 is Silk Blaze Dragon armor card. So we are playing the Bars right line, and that of course will mean that we are playing one arm in this deck, purely because we are playing Overlord DN in the right deck. Most players will understandably be very hesitant to give us counter blast, because no longer can they just PG the Vanguard and then you cannot do your restand skill anymore, or they can just not call rears and then you're forced to swing the Vanguard and they guard it, then your Vanguard doesn't restand. Now they don't have to worry. You just swing at the Vanguard, you pay 1 counter blast and you restand, no matter what. Therefore, most players are gonna try and get you at 1 counter blast, and if you're using Bar, that 1 counter blast is going to your on right skill rather than your Overlord restand. So it's all about weighing options. And for me, I'd rather just get the restand rather than be able to search out a guaranteed PG that against most decks, Chrono Jet, Messiah, Minerva, Abysu. 1 PG is not going to save you, even though it might delay you from dying. So
you need to rush down the Dragon Tree before it turns 7.
Yes, correct. Turn 6. Okay, so if you don't know what normal card does, is when you ride on top of Silk Blaze Dragon Ahimsa, Soul Blast 1, so it's basically just Soul Blast your starter.
Yes.
You search your deck for up to 1 arms, or 1 of the sword, or 1 of the shield, and you add it to your hand.
Yeah, but you only play the shield.
Yeah, so because we only play 1 arm, because we don't want to clog the deck with multiple arms.
So why do you choose the shield over the sword?
Oh, because you can troll people into thinking that you're playing Balsagra, because Balsagra always searches the shield.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to play, it's a personal preference thing. If you want to play the sword, it's perfectly fine. But for me, I'd rather just have some mind game aspect and play the shield.
Okay.
Yeah. And that basically is your replacement on right +1 that Bar gives you, because Bar is also on right CV1 +1,
But
whereas
it's
this
a
is
selected
a
+1.
this is a Soul Blast +1, and then you can just discard the shield for your right deck for the next card, which is our ever reliable Dragonite Nahalem. So Dragonite Nahalem has 2 abilities. His first ability is when he's ridden upon by a card with Overlord in his card name, so it does not have to be the original Dragonic Overlord. It can be the end, which is why this right deck actually works. You call him out to Rearguard Circle. So basically, oh hi, Alfred Early.
It's just a card with Dragonic with Overlord.
Yes.
Okay.
Then his skill on Rearguard Circle is Soul Blast. Once per turn, Soul Blast 1. If your Vanguard is Overlord in his name, you may choose himself and your Vanguard, and they both gain 5k for 1 Soul Blast. So it's just very, very simple plusing power, and it just spreads the pressure out very nicely across your entire board, and then you didn't even need to call it from hand, so it's a win-win overall. And and then of course the big man himself, Dragonic Overlord DN. So his first ability is, if you have Dragonic Overlord in the soul, the original Dragonic Overlord, he gains 5k, and his drive checks cannot be reduced by card ability,
Including himself.
because that's why his second ability comes in, which is that once per turn, at the end of the battle that he attacked, Counterblast 1, discard 2 cards from your hand to stand him, and he loses 1 drive check. But if you have the first skill, then he will not be losing that 1 drive check. So DN since set 5 has been an absolutely tour of force. There has been an absolutely unwavering, this just strong card. No frills, no catch. There's nothing special about this card other than he's just good. And then that basically allows you to build an entire deck of promos around him that makes him even better.
Now the thing is that you can still opt to play your regular Dragonic Overlord in the right deck and then choose to regularly cross-ride the end. Not only do you have enough searches to make this happen, it's still completely viable to have a full powered end on turn 4, and you can still do pretty well. However, this is assuming you actually manage to get your hands on all the hatchets as well as actually draw the bloody thing. If not, then you actually do stand to minus cards during your first grade 3 turn, which is a concern for some people, especially given our current meta of Grand Fear and whatever not.
Minusing cards.
Yeah, but other than that, it's still alright to play it. So this is a more experimental approach towards Overlord, as you can tell. This is not a right that you see often. It's not. But it's an approach that you take if you have already spent at least 3 million yen in the last month. Moving on to our grade 3s. Our grade 3s, we play 1 copy of the end in the right deck, as well as your regular 4 copies. You play 4 copies of the regular Dragonic Overlord, and then you also play 1 copy of your shield. Now I'm gonna break it down real quick so that we can get it out of the way. Dragonic Overlord the end, we've already explained all of its skills in entirety. We play more copies because if you manage to get a DN on turn 3 and a Persona right DN on turn 4, you essentially win the game. I cannot stress this hard enough. So that's that really quickly out of the way. Your shield, even though it's a one-off, it is a +1 garnet. So the issue is that you want to search it out with the on-right skill, right, of this guy?
Yes.
So when he writes, you search him out with this, but if you somehow redraw into this or something, then you don't get a plus, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it's fine. You save 1 soul.
You save on the soul, but this is basically your garnet in the deck. You do not want to search this guy by your mulligan. You want to keep him in the deck so you can actually discard it. Would I recommend playing another shield or sword to ensure that you will always get a +1 from the right line? No, because it's complete ass and you have so much good cards that you paid for, so you might as well play them. But other than that, I think one-off is still fine considering how experimental the right deck is. Of course, we have 4 copies of the ever-reliable Dragonic Overlord. Overlord has 2 skills. When he's attacking a rearguard, your opponent cannot react, so your opponent can't guard to it. Your opponent can cast orders, I guess, but like that will stop him. And then his second skill is that whenever his attack hits on the Vanguard Circle, call +1, discard 1, stand this guy, he gets drive -1. Very simple and reliable boss, but because of the fact that we are playing DN in the right deck, Overlord has now been relegated to the sidelines at long last. So you basically just use this guy to put him in the soul of the end, and that's basically it. But like I mentioned multiple times in the video, what if you like to play Dragonic Overlord as your first grade 3 ride? It's entirely possible. Please check the link in the description below. Moving on to our grade 2s. Our grade 2s, we play one copy of the Dragonite Nahalem. For the right deck, we play 2 copies of Desert Gunner Ethan. We play 4 copies of Burning Horn Dragon, and then we play 4 copies of the nefarious Alder Hatchet Dragon. So yeah, I'll let you cover it.
So Dragonite Nahalem, we've already covered him already. He's just a very very good grade 2 Vanguard, and then he will basically if your opponent doesn't deal with him, then he will have to deal with a 23k Dragonic Overlord at the end that restands, or even worse when you persona ride 33k. So this is a very annoying unit, very very good right deck card. The Desert Gunner Ethan has been our premier counter charger since set 3. I do not need to explain anymore. This card is just absolutely stupid. When your Vanguard attack hits, retire him to counter charge 1 and draw 1.
Yep, so he cycles
I
himself.
do not need to explain
and
that.
he counter charges.
Yeah.
So you only need 2 because you don't really need that much counter charge in this deck anymore.
Yeah. Especially since you want to try and kill as fast as you possibly can. So
and he is a 9k base, so keep that in mind if you want to call him to early rush. That it's not a really great idea to do it, but yeah, Ethan's still there just so you can turn around the back row.
He's certainly better than Gojo.
He's better than Gojo, so yeah, do play.
Yeah. And then we have, of course, Burning Horn. So Burning Horn, of course, is the superstar from last year.
A very long-standing competition.
When placed Counter Blast 1, when placed Counter Blast 1, you may look at the top 7 cards of your deck and reveal 1 card with Overlord and its card name and put it into your hand. And if you did not reveal a card from this card ability, you get to counter charge 1.
This is your top 7.
Yes. So this is basically how we can actually run the Alder Hatchet strategy so smoothly, because we have a searcher for our Dragonic Overlord.
And it counter charges if you fail.
And it also helps us search our persona right, which is the main benefit of running Alder Hatchet. The fact that you can turn 4 persona right in a format where every other deck tries to kill you on their first grade 3 turn. Fate Rider. Fate Rider. So so having a searcher is just very 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 strong for a deck that is very reliant on seeing one of your grade 3s as well as seeing your persona right. As well, he has his second ability, which is a 1-for-1 from Igni Road. He did not take that very lightly, that's why he's not being reprinted next set.
Yes.
So second skill is that when your Overlord Vanguard attacks, he gains 5k until the end of turn. That's it. So Overlord is a restanding deck, so your Overlord is gonna attack twice minimum. And if you hit our favorite mechanic, the over trigger, then he attacks 3 times. So it means all your Burning Horns on field basically gain 15.
But that's assuming you are, Kaito Shiki. If not, plus 10 is still nothing to scoff at. Turn 3 or greater.
Yeah, so just very very strong card. Speaking of very very strong cards, we have our newest discussion of, oh my god, is this series too expensive? It's Alder Hatchet Dragon.
Poor difference.
So this has been a very controversial card, honestly, because I've seen a lot of people say that he's not that good, or it's too high roll, but
it's too expensive.
Yeah, but Alder Hatchet has genuinely made me have a lot of fun playing Overlord again.
Because you're winning.
It's no longer just, I swing real, it's like, I have to wait until turn 4 to win, I have to wait until turn 5 to persona right. No, you just, I auto lose to prison.
This card saves Overlord from the prison matchup, so I'm glad. That's the one thing I will not spy for.
If you want the quick and short version, if you're only gonna buy Alder Hatchet to fight prison, you just need 2 copies. 2 copies. And then you just play the old build from when Harb came out, and that's it. That's all you need. But if you want to play, if you hate yourself and you want to win on turn 4, then please continue watching the video.
Yes.
So Alder Hatchet skill is when placed on the Guardian Circle, if you have it's on the Guardian Circle, if you have a grade 3 or grade 3 card with Overlord in his name in your soul, he gains 5k shield.
Oh my god, defense in Overlord.
Yeah, so it's 10k. So basically, once you have, so long as you're not fighting prison, once you have that 1 copy of Dragonic Overlord in the soul, all your excess Alder Hatchet basically are useless. So you can just use them as shield.
Defense in Overlord.
Yeah. Then his second ability is the reason why he is so expensive is that act on Vanguard Circle. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater,
so it's a grade 2nd card. It's basically Amelia.
You may retire him to choose a grade 3 card with Overlord in his name from your drop zone and put it into your soul. So this is basically how you cheat out Dragonic Overlord the end skill, by putting a Dragonic Overlord from your drop zone into your soul. And that's the long and short of it.
Do you note that it is graded based on the fact that your opponent needs to be greater. So Overlord is a going second deck. You can't steamroll your opponent with a full powered DOTE while your opponent's only on grade 2. Frankly speaking, then we don't need to play this game anymore. We can just go back to premium. But that being said, the defensive aspect of this card is nice because Overlord has a lot of attackers. Like if you've seen Berserk Dragon, if you've seen the Harlem, if you've seen Burning Horn, to have a card that focuses on shield for once in Overlord is nice because Overlord players for the last, I don't know, year and a half are forced to play Madoka because they need the shield to survive. Now you have a bit more shield. It's not a lot, but it's enough to warrant you saying, yes, I'll pay 3 million yen for that.
Unfortunately, if you haven't been keeping count, there is one card that has been replaced thanks to Alder Hatchet, and that's Brachial Force.
Brachial Force.
So Brachial Force was a recent addition to Overlord that I think many meta versions of the deck have been including, because he is one of the strongest 1-for-1s in Dragon Empire history. Is just on hit, retire one rearguard while your opponent's rearguard and draw one. But I mean, to be very frank, your counter charger is very important. Your superior Dragonic Overlord is also very important. So there really is just no room to have Brachial Force anymore. If you really like the card, if your entire meta when you go to your locals is just Lutetia and Chrono Jet with that 3 swirlers in the back row, then by all means you can play Brachial Force in one of the grade 1 slots that we're about to show you. Just not the 6,000 yen grade 1 slot, of course.
Yes, our grade 1s, we play 1 copy of Ahinza on the right deck.
No, it's not Namoka.
Or Namoka on the right deck, 4 of the PG, 4 of Harb, and then 4 copies of Madoka.
Yes.
So let's break it down real quick. We've covered the right deck card. Frankly, I don't need to discuss this anymore. We've gone to great depth with the Garnets. For PG, because if you're paying a lot of money to survive, you might as well just pay a bit more to ensure you can guard everything. And speaking of guard, it's Madoka. Madoka is a stealth card that we definitely stole from Shoujo Doji. What does it do? If your opponent's drop zone has 4 more cards, he gets 2,000 power and 5,000 shield. If your opponent has 8 or more cards in the drop zone, he gains another 5,000 shield. So as long as you're forcing your opponent to guard, Soul Blast, discard, mill, etc, or if he's an unlucky Zorga player, then you're gonna have a 15k Guardian, 4 copies of that in your deck. And as you know, 15k shield is insane in the 5k shield format. So really, because the rest of the board builds itself for Dragonic Overlord, you can spend 4 slots to keep yourself to staying alive. So you might as well play this guy. And if you want to talk about staying alive, why not make your opponent dead with Dragritter Harb? Dragritter Harb has 2 skills. If he's discarded for the effect of an Overlord, his counter has 2 cards. So yes, you heard us right. We finally stole something from Phantom Blast Overlord. We stole corpse farming. But it's hand corpse farming. Is this considered a hand trap? I don't know. Second skill is, when discarded for the effect of an Overlord, you can basically just call this guy to an open rearguard circle. Open, right?
Open back row.
Open back row, rearguard circle. And then he gains 5,000 power. Yeah, you heard me right. So not only do you discard for like an Overlord effect mid-battle phase, you now get a 13k booster for free out of freaking nowhere. And you didn't even -2. You went +1 with this thing because it cheats the cost and then calls. And then to top it all off, he stays on the board. So you can essentially, over a very long grind game, assuming your opponent is good enough to live that long, you can build an entire barrel full of Harbs just by casually playing the game, which is insane. Now, Harb is the reason why Overlord has been that good since set 6. In set 5 it was good, yes, but in set 6 he's had staying power because of Harb. In their days he has this as well, if I'm not mistaken. And in English you guys just got it, and that's why everyone's like, oh my god, you got Overlord so good. But the Japanese have long adapted to it. But Harb has become a way of life for anyone playing Overlord in D and maybe P, I don't know. But the long and short of it is that if you can't afford Harb, it's totally acceptable because Harb is not the necessity that you've been taught it is. You can actually still afford to minus a few more cards, but you need to ensure you kill faster. So if you can't afford Harb, the moral of the story is you need to play an Overlord deck that has more aggression early on. If not, then you just die.
And then mainly the reason why Harb is so good is that when you're going first and you write DOTE, you no longer -2 in order to only drive check 1. You just -1 drive check 1, so it's a net 0 for your first grade treater, which is of course very good because a lot of decks these days punish you for riding up early, and Overlord definitely does not want to do that because its whole gimmick is restanding.
Yes.
You don't want to be delaying that.
Our triggers, we play a Dragonic Overlord, the trigger. We play 3 effect draws. Like I said, you're paying to win. You gotta pay to win. 4 crits for normal. 8 normal crits because we can't afford to pay for the effect crit. What the hell? And 4 normal heal. because really balance is the essence of all this. I know what effect triggers do, but frankly, Overlord just needs a consistent amount of shield, and the most consistent amount of shield is always going to be your regular heals. So if you have knowledge pre-hand, if Kidani gave you a phone call and said, hey, listen to me, the entire of your VMC tomorrow is all going to be playing Chrono Jet, yes, swap to your effect heals. But if not, please play your normal heals in the fact that you run into that one unfortunate guy who didn't bring Messiah, who didn't bring Jet, he brought Yuji.
Yes.
And that wraps up our Dragonic Overlord deck profile. Really, there's a lot of thoughts on this one. Like I said, this is of course the most expensive version of the deck out there. So if you really can't afford it, it is fine. There are cheaper options for Overlord. This is really, Fate of Force complete flex video on you to assure you that he comes from a more affluent background. But really, it doesn't matter. You can still enjoy Overlord with whatever you have, so long as you actually know what you're doing. Overlord in this meta is one of those untiered decks in the sense that it's like no one really talks about it in the sense that it's gonna kill the world, but it very easily can if someone dedicated enough really choose to. It appeared at Worlds with Harb without Alder Hatchet, which should be a huge sign to you of this deck's actual staying power.
I mean, to be honest, Ames, it's just about eating instant noodles for 7 months. That's the long and short.
Wait, what? That's it?
Yeah, it's just eating instant noodles for 7 months. That's how I can afford two overly priced promos in one deck.
I see. Maybe you should consider V then.
No.
Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye. Say something.
No.